Hi sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Nina Sim, and thank you all so much for all the love and support. Hope you all are doing great. Before I get into this video, I'm going to say that I am in a very quiet place, but there are some noise outside, but I hope it does not affect the production of this video. I am apologizing in advance. All right, so this video is about an Asian woman calling out Black people and telling them that if you are not being treated nicely, because there are so many Asian stores, you all already know that in Black community, which happened that Black dollar do not even spend a minute or 30 minutes in Black community. It goes straight up to Asian community. Like, you know, there are so many stores all over Black communities, right? And she is encouraging Black people. If they are not giving you what you want, because they have been giving Black people so many troubles and not also being very supportive to Black people. And she is telling Black people, if they are not being nice to you, if they are treating you poorly, when you are their customer, you spend your money in their stores and all that, boycott them. So she is calling on Black people to boycott them if they decide not to be nice to Black people. And I am also supporting that, because you are not going to spend your money where you are not wanted. If you are going to spend money, at least spend it where you are wanted, not where people are following you around or treating you like you are going to steal everything in their stores and making you look like you are the bad person when they are the one. You know what? Let's get into this.
Asian American businesses have been operating in Black communities for 60 years. I'll say it again. The Civil Rights Act passed in 1964, and the United States opened the door to Asian immigration in 1965 to put immigrants in the way of Black people. And this idea that the tension between business owners and customers is one of mutual cultural misunderstanding that could be overcome if they just got to know each other better, the time for that has long passed. And as I've said before, the problem with framing the misunderstanding as mutual is where one demographic owns the businesses and the other demographic has to pay. There's no mutuality. There is a power imbalance. The only situation that I could see being beneficial at this point would require Asian Americans to be willing to leverage their ability to secure the business loans, to secure supplier accounts, and to attain business licenses, to open in Black communities specifically to hire Black people to work in the businesses and to provide the professional development opportunities so that Black people can become the leadership in the businesses in their communities. But I don't have a lot of hope that Asian Americans are willing to do that, because the Asian American business owners that we see currently are not even willing to treat their Black customers as human. So I fully support Black people boycotting these problematic businesses in their community. And I want to say that I think another thing that non-Black people aren't aware of is that it is not as simple as boycotting the businesses and putting them out of business and then opening your own to compete. Because the system will find ways to still not give them the loans or rezone them so they can't open a business or not grant the business licenses. And suppliers are literally conspiring against Black people who have managed to open a business in their own community to not supply to them because they don't want Black people competing with the Asian American owned businesses in the community. So I wish that I had more to offer in the way of solutions, but I really don't. But please do not gaslight Black people with respect to what the issue is.
In this, we can recognize that a lot of us think that we can hustle our way out of white supremacy, or that we can just simply buy back the block. And a lot of those methodologies are absence of how policy plays into how resources are distributed in our community, and also ignores how policy gives access to our communities. What we can acknowledge, and when she was speaking, is that in 1964, there was a Civil Rights Act that was passed, and in 1965, there was an Immigration Act that passed. We recognize that these two policies had a determining factor in how the Black community operates to this day. What I know is that when it comes to different restaurants, different nail salons, different beauty stores, that these businesses are usually owned by non-Black people, however operated within the Black community.
With the Civil Rights Amendment passing in 1964, and then immigration opening up in 1965, and recognizing this pattern of using immigrants to basically get in the way of accountability to Black people. So it's like, okay, the Civil Rights Amendment finally passes. There should be some accountability. Systems should be changing. And then all of a sudden you've thrown a group of people into the mix who don't have context. Like they've just arrived. You know, my mom and my dad, my mom arrived in the 50s, but my dad arrived in the 60s. Those opportunities, right? Like those educational opportunities, those business opportunities, those resources that with the Civil Rights Amendment should have been opportunities for Black people who fought for those civil rights are now, you know, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want to say that Asian Americans don't work hard and that they don't deserve what they get, but you know, they arrive and that opportunity is being given to them. And we even know that with the Civil Rights Amendment passing in 1964, that doesn't mean like, oh, everything, that doesn't mean that there's no more discrimination, that, you know, 1964, that's shut the door on discrimination. An amendment passes and you still have all these states with legislation, and we know that systems still haven't changed, so.
I think something that had really brought me into your video is the historical and the policy analysis about the issue. Usually when we start talking about how there are a lot of non-Black owned businesses in the Black community, I think it's done through a way where we kind of perpetuate pathology. So what I like about your nuance in your video is that you say something important like, hey, it's not just cultural differences.
Right.
When people own and when people buy, that's not balanced.
So, yeah. So when I was learning more about it, I was reading a paper that described it as mutual understanding or misunderstanding, mutual misunderstanding. Like after the LA riots, they would interview Asian, you know, there would be business owners who would say like, oh, well, we didn't know about the civil rights struggle. So if we had known, we would have been more sympathetic to the community. At that point, I feel like, okay, but it's been like over 20 years.
Yeah.
No, and I was like, but again, there's no mutuality, because there's a dynamic again where it's the business owners versus customers, and it's business owners in the neighborhood of the customers. So that's a power dynamic. And I think something that I wish I didn't feel as cynical about is it's been so long that I feel like if these businesses wanted to do better, they could have done better by now. So I kind of at this point I support boycotts. I support boycotts. I get called a traitor for that because they're saying like, you know, you're advocating for people to not support Asian American businesses, and I'm like, but if they're going to engage in predatory capitalism, and if they're you know, not going to do right by the communities that they're in, then what else do you do? Like, there's no more explaining.
I'm doing a little research on my motto: research over research, research over research. I got this from the journal was called The Misinterpretations and Injustices, the 1992 Los Angeles Riots and Black and Korean Conflict by King Kok Jun. I hope I'm saying it correctly. I apologize if I'm not. It says, there are several problems associated with such reasoning. First, most recent Asian immigrants have brought with them considerable economic and cultural capital, unlike African Americans who had suffered centuries of slavery and attended poverty and illiteracy. Second, just because Asian Americans have not sought welfare or medical aid from the government does not mean they have not need of such help. The simple lack of wherewithal, such as a fluency in the English and knowledge about the U.S. social system to seek it. Third, the myth of the model minority homogenized all Asian Americans when many Chinese Americans, Filipino Americans, Vietnamese Americans, Cambodian Americans still live below the poverty level. What we see here is that there's a concerted effort of anti-Blackness and how light over dark, white over Black becomes a structural modality that allows for different people to value different individuals and create this hierarchy. What we understand is that even given this hierarchy, I can acknowledge as a Black person, there has been a lot of people and a lot of sentiments in our community that have internalized this idea of the myth of the model minority. And what we know from doing different interviews and talking to different people in the Asian community and in the Black community, that this myth of the minority is one that is asserted, that is able to almost sustain, legitimize the idea of divide and conquer.
But I'm saying that I understand why like nervous trolls are like, oh, you're blaming white supremacy and there's not even any white people involved. Like, they'd be like, there are no white people.
That's the masterfulness of white supremacy, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can be present without being present, that's like, if you can acknowledge that whiteness and white supremacy operates by being like always being present without being present, it's kind of how it is. We can think about how in communities of Black people, aesthetics and ethics and morals of white supremacy, it creep into it. It's the reason why this work is so hard. That's the reason why we can acknowledge that even in places, because you know what we can do? We can center Blackness. We ain't gonna center whiteness. We're gonna center anti-Blackness. We can acknowledge that having continents in the world, everyone's continents are implicated in systems of anti-Blackness. So we start thinking about the root cause of anti-Blackness. We can acknowledge it's something about Blackness and Black people that the world views as being consumable, and views as being something you can always separate Black folks from what they create.
Right.
And it's just like, hey, I'm sorry, racist, or you know what? I'm sorry, well-meaning white person or well-meaning person of color that believes that anybody can be racist and they believe we all should be singing Kumbaya.
Right.
The reason why we beefing is not because we both put our pants on the same. The reason why we have conflict is not because we both bleed red. If the reason why we can't see eye to eye, we got beef, it's not because we both part of the human race. It's because of these differences in the way in which we have bought into stories. So now I think it's important that people like you, people like me, tell our story in a way where we purposely and intentionally leaning into how do you and I understand each other better while working through the shit.
Obviously, the issue of Asian American-owned businesses operating in Black communities is a huge source of tension because it is part of the daily violence faced by Black people in their own communities when they are disrespected as customers, to the literal physical violence, as was the case of the salon in Brooklyn, where a Black woman was locked into the salon by workers while they beat her with broomsticks, to the damage done to the psyches of particularly Black children when they are accused of shoplifting. And this isn't a topic that I'm going to be able to cover in one video, but it is a conversation that I do want to start. I think that if you ask some people what was the source of the tension, they'll say the LA riots and what happened in Koreatown, but you cannot mention the LA riots without recognizing the unaliving of Latasha Harlins the year before. A 15-year-old girl who was unalived by an Asian shop owner who thought that she was shoplifting orange juice, but the money to pay for the orange juice was in her hand when she was unalived. To overlook that is to value profit and property over Black bodies, which is at the root of the United States systemically racist system and capitalism. But I think that we have to go all the way back to the Civil Rights Amendment of 1964 and then the opening of Asian immigration in 1965. So in 1964, white power structure almost faced accountability to Black people. Black people should have started to be able to receive loans to open businesses in their own communities. But instead, in 1965, the United States opened the door to Asian immigration, and redlining meant that Asian Americans were receiving business loans, but only to open businesses in Black communities, and Black people were still not receiving loans to open businesses in their own communities. So where you have this weaponized positionality of Asian Americans being put in Black people's way, of course you are going to have resentment not only over the supplanted opportunity to open businesses in their communities, but also over the fact that the Black dollar is now being paid out twice. Once when the customer pays for the goods or services, and then again when the Asian business owner removes that wealth from the Black community. And I frequently heard the tension being framed as mutual misunderstanding, where these Asian shop owners didn't know about the civil rights struggles of Black people, and Black people were not familiar with the culture of Asian business owners. But I don't think that it can be framed as mutual misunderstanding where there is an uneven power dynamic. You have one demographic that is the business owners, and you have the other demographic that is having to pay. So where there is uneven power, I don't think that it's accurate to frame it as mutual misunderstanding. I'm going to respond to this in two videos, one speaking generally, and in this video I'm specifically going to address Asian control of the Black beauty industry. Now, this is a topic that is a huge source of tension between Black and Asian Americans. So before I get into it, I want to make a couple of things clear. As an Asian American, I have never liked saying a problem is a particular ethnicity or is not a particular ethnicity. However, in the past, when I have talked about this comment and referenced Asian Americans generally, I have been perceived as throwing all Asian Americans under the bus. So to make it clear, it is a relatively small percent of the overall Asian American population that engages in this business. However, it is important that we acknowledge that this predatory business behavior is a significant contributing source of the aggression and daily violence that is faced by many Black people. So now getting into it, there is such a prevalence of Asian-owned and operated businesses that sell beauty products for Black people in Black neighborhoods that at this point, Asians also control distribution and manufacturing. And what that means is that in this context, Asians do hold the systemic power to deprive Black people of economic opportunity by preventing them from opening these businesses in their own communities. A prospective Black business owner can have secured financing, secured a property, and met all other licensing requirements, yet still not be able to open an account from a distributor because the distributors are Asian and they don't want Black business owners competing with Asian business owners. Now, this is something that is specifically East Asian. I've heard that Black business owners have better luck opening accounts with Indian distributors, and I would love to hear from people if this is true, because I would hope that it would create competition. Now, in case there are people who are thinking, I can't believe that an East Asian just said that she hopes that East Asian businesses are driven out, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I hope that competition can be created to finally dismantle a toxic dynamic that's been going on for way too long. Predatory businesses would be faced with a choice to either remain predatory and go out of business or become competitive and improve customer service, which is something that should have happened decades ago.
So this is all I got from this video, and before I start my commentary, I want to apologize. I don't know if, like, I am in a very quiet place, but there are some things going on outside, so I don't know how, like, I have a very good sound. I'm a very quiet place, but I don't know if the sound from outside might be affecting this video, but I apologize in advance. I don't know, but I am just saying, So first of all, let's come back to this. I love the fact that she is being very truthful, right? She actually said it by saying, if they are not getting it right, if they are not doing it right, it is better Black people boycott them. And this has been one of the things I have been screaming about for so long, because I have seen so many Asian businesses treating Black people in a very not nice manner. And I do not appreciate that. You all already know how Asian stores are all over Black community and all that. I don't think it's a new thing. I have said that over and over here, how they are able to get loans and the rest of it to open businesses in Black communities, because the white people do not also want them to open businesses in their own community, but they were giving loans to come to Black community and open businesses. So with all that, still Black people are their biggest. They are their biggest customers, right? But still, they are not being treated nicely. There is this saying that Black dollar does not spend 30 minutes in Black community. It goes straight up to Asian community. So you all already know that Black people have been, like, you all know how supportive Black people are. When they see your business, they, like, they are ready to support anybody as long as you are ready to, like, do good or be nice and all that. But as it stands, they are just all over Black people, and at the same time not being supportive to Black people, right? Because I cannot be giving you my money when you are, the services you are giving me is not, like, and they all of a sudden they start following Black people around in their stores. I wanted to know if you are shoplifting, being kind of crazy. Like, when they see you in store, they start following you around to the extent that somebody was Pe0ple because they felt the person shoplifted orange juice. What is orange juice? So the conflict has really been going on and on. And I keep saying it. I am not going to give somebody my money or I am not going to spend money where I am not wanted. I love to spend money where I am wanted. And I think it's also important we start patronizing our own people. I know it is kind of very hard for my people to open businesses and all that because they are not getting that loan, but they are giving them to Asians to come to Black community to clear their money and the rest of it. Not just only beauty store. There are so many other, stores all around being owned by Asians, right? So I am saying this. If you are not going to treat me nicely, right, I would rather boycott you and patronize my own people. Like I keep saying it, buying from Black stores might be a little bit far, but you have to do the work because you cannot spend money or you cannot continue enriching people that do not even support your own community. I probably might not be lying but I am not lying. I know what I am saying. So they are not supportive to my own community, but my community, spend everything, all their dime in their own store. So it's either you are ready to be part or to support me, and I am going to support you. But if we are not supporting one another, there is no need, right? The best thing to do is to boycott. This is all I got to say, and see you all in my next video. Bye for now.